Hi guys, this is Mika. Welcome to Single to Mrs. This evening, I thought I'd be a little more intimate with you all, as far as talking to you all from my safe place. I know a lot of us go through things, but if you look at my first video, I talked about who I am. And one of the things that I have experienced in my lifetime is being in my 40s and suffering from grief and trauma. And that's one of the things one of the reasons why it took me so long to get on social media and to talk to you all and express how I was feeling and what I was going through. When I got into my 40s, I did a relocation of my area. And while I was doing that, I kind of stepped away from my family and my friends. And during that time, I wasn't working. I had a little bit of a setback, and I decided that, I was going to be a stay at home mom. I was going to enjoy that time with my children. And at that time, while I was doing that, I had a little bit of, things started settling in. And when I say settling in, it's just that when you're not working anymore and you're older or you're younger, and your mind is not so occupied with the day-to-day activities of, like I said, your friends or your family, your body, your brain and your body has a little more time to settle down. And so at that time, that's when I experienced my true traumas, my true, just anxiety, and everything just hit me at once. And I did not know what was going on with myself, guys. Like, it was very scary for me. I'm going to be honest. I remember one night I was sitting in my room and I was reading my son a bedtime story, and all of a sudden, my chest started hurting really bad. And I was like, what is going on? And my husband was away at the time. And I was like, man, my chest is just throbbing. Like, what in the world? And I remember standing up and I remember going into my living room, and all of a sudden, like, I thought I was having a heart attack. I'm going to be honest with you all. And I remember calling my neighbor, and I was asking my neighbor to please come over. Like, I really needed to get to the hospital. And I was just, hyperventilating. My chest was hurting. I was just like emotional at the time because I was afraid to see what was going on. And when I got to the hospital, I remember the doctor coming in, and he looked at me and he said, sweetie, I just need you to breathe. And I was like, I just can't. Like, my chest is killing me. I'm full of emotions. I was crying, like I was sobbing. And that's when he told me, he was like, you're literally having an anxiety attack. And I was like, man, like, I've never dealt with anxiety. Not that I had known of, since I was a little girl, I know sometimes, I went through things. And when like I said, I was a young mother myself. Well, as I kept going day to day, every time I turned around, I felt like I had to go back to the hospital. Like, that was my security blanket, is to be at the hospital. And then that's when I felt like I was okay. So anyway, I went to my regular primary care physician, and they was like, look, I think you need to see a counselor. And they'll remind you, I didn't never have to see a counselor, coming up. I just thought, I grew up in the house where, you're okay. You don't need to see anybody. I'm sure most of you out there have gone through the same thing, especially if you grew up in a Black household. Most of the time, what happens in the house stays in the house. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. You're just going through something, and tomorrow will be a better day. Well, I decided to go see a counselor, and I talked to a counselor about, just my day-to-day life, being a young mom, and, just working in healthcare. And, if you ever know about anything about healthcare, they always tell you the first thing is that, you leave your emotions at home. Like, if somebody passes away, you're not supposed to show emotion. You're supposed to act. You care for the patient, and you leave your emotions somewhere else until later. You go into the break room and you let it out later. But during that time, you have to focus on your patient. Well, I guess after all the years of working, like I said, on the trauma unit and, working general surgery and working labor and delivery, everything is not always peaches and cream, especially when you're working on labor and delivery, people pass away, babies pass away, and, you get really close with your patients sometimes. And, like I said, I've done home health as well. And, you get really close to people, and nursing homes, you get really close to people sometimes. And, just your own personal issues, when you're not working and you're at home and you're trying to manage family, friends, your relationships, it's not always easy for you. You're just kind of like, it's okay, we'll get past this, or I'll get past this. But like I said, eventually your emotions catch up with you. And that's what had happened to me. So when I went to my counselor, she said, Jamika, she said, let me tell you something. She said, you suffer from trauma and grief. And I was like, wow. I'm telling you, as soon as I sat on her couch the first day, all I could do was just bawl tears. Like, I couldn't even talk to her. Like I said, I guess, I had pushed so much of my emotions to the side. I didn't have time to think about what was going on with myself. I was too busy trying to be a mom, trying to be a girlfriend, trying to be a wife, and never took into consideration what I was really going through. So now that I'm a little older, like I said, I'm at home with my children and I don't have to use my mind and brain as much. So now, like I said, I have my days where things feel really heavy on me, my chest hurts, the littlest thing can just spike and just get me all worked up, get me all upset, make me emotional. So I just wanted to take the time with you all to share, the things. Like I said before, I've had to deal with one of my best friends. Like I said, he was a transgender and he passed away. And it broke my heart, like we were close. He was the only honest person I have ever had in my life, like as far as a friend, somebody who I could depend on, someone I could talk to, tell all my, deepest secrets to until I met my husband. And, that friend left me and he went on to heaven. And then, I had, other people that was in my life that were close to me that had passed on. And, like I said, it can take a toll on you sometimes. And you sit back and you think, wow, they're no longer here. Your support is no longer here. And it can make you really sad. And that's why having God in your life is so important. And I push that so much in my videos because, like I said, I don't know where would I be today, having anxiety, having trauma in my life, having to deal with, never being a little girl and your father always tells you, you never let a man put their hands on you. And then the day that happens, your life is shattered. You go into shambles and, and you're like, I can't believe this happened to me. No matter what you do as a human being, no one ever has the right to hurt you, ever, in any kind of way. So you always have to protect yourself and, just make sure that you're safe and you're in a safe relationship. Like I said, I just thank God every day that I'm alive and, because it could have been a lot worse for me. And, I have to share my story because I know so many of you out there probably have been through the same thing as me. And, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, men get hurt too, just as well as women, men are victims too. So, I just wanted to share that with you all and just thank God for your lives. Thank God for your protection. And I just pray that, you all, whatever is trying to hinder you or hold you, that you ask God to lift it up off of you. And I ask God all the time, just shield me and protect me, oh Lord, just keep that devil off of me, keep that demon off of me, because I want to enjoy my days. I want to be able to laugh and be joyous, but you can't always be happy and joyous. You're going to have days where you feel heavy, when you feel sad, but I just want you to know that I'm here with you. And like I said, I have my own darkness that I've had to deal with and overcome as well. So you're not alone. But I just wanted to share that really quick with you all. I pray that you have a great night. I pray that you have a glorious morning in the morning, and I will see you then. But I just wanted to talk to y'all and let you know that I'm here for you. All right. I love you. God bless you. Have a great night. Say your prayers before bed. Love you. Bye.